747-234-2254. Radical Agenda on a Skype there. Jared, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't know. We lost sound with Augustus, so I don't know what happened. Jared Howe, welcome to the Radical Agenda. Good to be with you, my friend.
Thanks, man. It's good to finally be on.
It's good to be on with you too, man. Now, what do you call? I see you posting from Liberty Hangout frequently, and I assume that was like your primary thing. But you inform me that you are a guest contributor over there. You're the assistant media director at beinglibertarian.com. And you co-host Backwards Live with Eric July.
Correct.
How long? Let's start here. How do you get into libertarianism?
I got into libertarianism a long time ago, probably 2006 or 2007. Kind of segued into it with conspiracy theory type nonsense, like the 9/11 stuff, loose change, that sort of thing. But that led me to Ron Paul campaign in 2008, where I registered as a Republican so that I could caucus for Ron Paul in the 2008 election, the 2012 election. From there, I was kind of...
Hang on 1 second. Were you previously not registered to vote, or were you registered with another party?
I was previously not registered. So back then I was like 18 years old. It was,
okay,
right when I was first getting old enough to participate in politics.
Gotcha.
But I'm from Maine, so like the experience participating in the electoral politics, like in 2012, where Ron Paul actually won Maine, was kind of it was disenfranchising in a sense, because Ron, like I said, he won Maine, but then the delegates went down to Florida and weren't allowed to sit at the convention. So I was like, fuck this. I'm done with politics. I never got involved with the Libertarian Party or anything like that. But from there, I was kind of dispossessed. So I started looking around on the internet for other types of content I could follow. Mm-hmm. At which point I stumbled across like Stefan Molyneux and just kind of wrote it out from there and got, found the Tom Woods, the Mises Institute, and just sunk like 1,000, 2,000 hours into studying it.
Right on. Yeah. I did not get involved with the Ron Paul thing in 2008 myself. I had seen it, and I remember watching the Republican primary in 2008, and like there's a few times during the debates where Ron Paul would say something, and I was like, wow, that makes perfect sense. But then Mike Huckabee or John McCain would say something neocon-y, and the whole crowd would cheer, and I'd be like, oh, that's right, I'm on your team, like a fucking asshole. And and it wasn't until I ran into some legal trouble in 2009 that I was like, I should be more skeptical of the fucking government. And then I was all in for 2012.
I used to just get really upset about it. My dad was still living. He used to be really ardently pro George W. Bush and pro John McCain, and I fucking hated neocons and just all that shit. So, but when I got to be like 18 years old, I also wasn't feeling the Clintons either, and like the whole Obama thing. I don't even remember who ran as a Democrat in 2008. Now I think of it, but
that would have been.
Yeah, I was like, I fucking hated Obama too. I didn't like any of it. So I was like, what am I gonna do? What do I participate in? Where do I put my efforts in? Right. For Ron Paul, it seemed like a no-brainer. I started learning about like the Federal Reserve and stuff like that, and ever since then, I've been kind of like autistically focused on that. So I'm like, all these politicians are basically the same. Or I used to think that way up until Trump, I guess. But all these politicians are basically the same, because they're going to bribe voters with fucking money from the Federal Reserve that they sell the unborn and debt slavery to generate. So I'm kind of, like I said, dispossessed with the whole thing. But then, I don't know, I was kind of, I became intrigued with the last election cycle, shall we say.
Well, yeah, that is certainly, I certainly did. And I entered it not thinking I would be, right? Like, I entered it in this, like, too cool for school fucking ANCAP, I'm not going to vote because that's for losers sort of attitude. And
yeah, voting is violence, and you're just voting for your own slave masters and your own slavery. That's that sort of thing. Yeah.
After what they did to Ron Paul in the 2012 Republican primary, I was really pissed off, right? I was like, even if we look, the guy fucking lost fair and square, whatever, but they disrespected him at the convention, right? And I said to myself, I'm like, they're never going to allow anything positive to happen. The people who are in control of this thing have more control over it than the voters do. And by the way, the voters are shit. So why the hell would I bother with democracy? And I really entered 2012 thinking like, all right, well, maybe Rand Paul can get me excited enough to get out of my chair on primary day, but I kind of doubt it. Was sort of my attitude towards it. But I guess you also sort of were you had your interest sparked by Donald Trump?
Interest, yeah. I mean, when I say that, I mean, like, it made me want to pay attention to the cycle. I didn't actually go out and vote or anything like that, but I did put a lot of time and effort into trying to reach people, those people who couldn't be talked out of voting already, like in the libertarian, anarchist type circles. I put a lot of time into convincing them. It's like, okay, if you can't be talked out of voting, if you're going to go do it and you've made up your mind on this, don't vote for Clinton. Vote for Trump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I was pushing for, because we could sit here as anarcho-capitalists or libertarians and be like, oh, I'm so ideologically pure, I'm just going to pretend and LARP as though all these candidates are exactly the same. Or I could say, okay, one of these people, at the end of the day, I did not prevent this election from happening. One of these people are going to be the fucking president. So which one's going to be worse for us? Is it going to be Hillary Clinton or is it going to be Donald Trump? Mm-hmm. And I watched as the media, academia, the tech industry, all the big corporations threw their weight behind Hillary Clinton and against Donald Trump. And I hadn't seen any candidates treated that poorly since Ron Paul.
Yeah.
So that to me was kind of interesting. It wasn't enough to make me feel like, oh, I all of a sudden have faith in the system now. I'm going to throw all my effort into voting and that sort of thing. But I did have a vested interest in having Donald Trump win. And I put a lot of time into just convincing people who were going to vote for him and not Clinton or Gary Johnson for that matter. Fucking retard.
But you yourself were not like, I'm not gonna be involved in this voting thing. You still felt icky about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I took a hardline stance between 2014 and 2016, especially, where I was like, I'm done with this. I'm not going to vote. And I don't know if I still feel that way or not. I may go vote again. I may not. It really depends. I'm still kind of torn on it, because prior to the election of Donald Trump, I'm like, nothing you do really makes a difference, right? We could sit here and we could get Ron Paul in as the fucking all our delegates to Ron Paul. They're not going to seat him at the national convention anyway. So for me, I was really coming from that angle. And then also there's the whole moral hazard of voting, right? Where you can kind of cherry pick. I'm responsible for all these good things that happen and all these bad things that happen. That has fucking nothing to do with me. I'm not responsible for that at all. So that kind of gets me iffy about it. But at the same time, I can't pretend that all outcomes are the same, right? So it's having someone like Hillary Clinton as a president as compared to someone like Donald Trump, you're going to get the media completely on her side, not covering anything critically at all, letting her get her fucking agenda through, doing anything she wants, as where Donald Trump they're completely critical of him. They don't let him do a fucking thing. They're constantly gumming up the works, throwing a wrench into the works. And you know what I mean? So there's a difference between a government that can legislate faster and a government that can legislate slower. So myself, even though I was kind of dispossessed before, I'm feeling like, this doesn't make a difference. I'm like, well, clearly the rate at which government increases is going to be slower under somebody like Donald Trump than someone like Hillary Clinton. So if I'm going to have any chance of opposing the state or shrinking the state at all, I need the growth of the state to slow down and stop. I understand that these things aren't going to go away overnight, but if you got no borders, you got open immigration, you're importing third world socialists and theocrats who vote for the fucking Democrats at rates at 70, 80%, you're never going to have a libertarian society. You might as well not stop even fucking talking about it, because they're just going to institute communism within, 3 generations?
That seems optimistic if we let them have their fucking way, right?
Right.
They would absolutely abolish private property this afternoon if they thought they could pull it off. It's just that we have too many goddamn guns.
Do libertarians, and to me, it fucking pissed me off so bad, because like I said, I'm in Maine. It's 95, 96% white, but I have this experience with refugees, Somali refugees that have been here my entire adult life, and they don't assimilate. They cost a lot of money. They cause flight from the white flight from the communities, this, that, the other thing, and people won't even put a name to it. They won't even say that there's a problem with this. They won't say that there's a problem with these insular, balkanized communities that they don't assimilate. We pay them to not assimilate. They have 6 kids per family, 6 to 8 kids per family, as where the native population's having 1 or 2 children. It's fucking basic math, dude. 3 to 4 generations, no matter what you start out with, you're going to be dispossessed as a people. You're going to be displaced as a people if you allow that to continue. And libertarians are fucking so bad on that issue. They constantly, everybody's equal. Everybody's completely equal. It doesn't matter what you vote for because all voting's the same. So I guess it doesn't matter if we import all these fucking people that vote for Democrats who are constantly bribing people for votes. They're selling the unborn into debt slavery so that they can say, oh, here's some fucking food stamps. Here's some Section 8. Here's some SNAP. Here's some TANF. This, that, the other thing. Public schools. So that they can bribe people for votes. And like I said, libertarians just don't get that, man.
It's annoying because, the thing is, I posted about sort of libertarians' attitudes on immigration the other day, right? And I just posted libertarians, and I just equated libertarians with open borders, and then I felt obligated to put left in parentheses right before libertarian, but I almost don't want to bother with it anymore. Like I just want to be like, go ahead, have the goddamn libertarian name. I'm so sick of fighting with communists for this stupid word anymore. But that's the attitude, right? I mean, but we also know that libertarianism proper is not this philosophy, right? This idea that open borders is going to bring us to the true path to prosperity, is completely ridiculous. Hey, never mind the martial law on the streets of England right now. That's completely unrelated, these fucking idiots. But they think that that's the true path to freedom. And it's like, well, I don't even know if they actually believe that. Sometimes I've been sort of convinced. I don't know. Sometimes I can get all conspiracy-ish on here. And, I've said before, the left goes out and tries to destroy good things. It does not surprise me that they've thrown a lot of resources at destroying libertarianism, right? And they have the means by which to do this. They just take their, the left never... never ostracizes their extremists, right? On the right, people, oh, you're too edgy, the fucking, the National Review will purge you and whatnot. But the left will never do that. Nobody in the Democratic Party is like, Salon really needs to tone it down, right?
No, and Salon's not coming out and disavowing Antifa by any means. I mean, they don't reject their extremist elements, and the right's like, oh, you got somebody on your side that everybody thinks is a Nazi. Either you disavow him, or we'll destroy your career. Yeah, you said you said something. You said something ambiguous about God's chosen people 6 years ago, and so we have to get rid of you because it might be interpreted as anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, the left is like, let's go set a city on fire and blow somebody's brains out, and they're like, that's just the language of the unheard. Right. And meanwhile, this whole idea of open borders is entirely antithetical to private property norms in the first place. It's not, like you said, it's not something that's justified by libertarianism. The whole point of libertarianism, private property norms, is to be able to tell who has the right to what resources. So something like open borders is a contradiction in terms because you're saying, okay, fuck it. Everybody can come in and have equal access to this resource. That's going to maximize the amount of conflict over that resource. It's going to lead to property disputes, or it's going to lead to disputes completely antithetical to the purpose of property norms. It's not something that libertarianism could justify. I don't know where, well, I'd say I don't know where it comes from, but I do kind of know where it comes from. You were reading, I think, this morning, an article from Mike Shipley over at Outright Libertarians, and you look up their organization, like, what the fuck is Outright? And it's like this gay alliance thing that's funded by the Open Societies Foundation. It's like, oh, okay, so George Soros comes in, throws a bunch of money at left libertarians and says, go write about fucking open borders and paint it in the light of how this is for gay rights. Like,
I had no idea that they were being funded by a Soros outfit. That is news to me. But I'm not surprised to hear it.
I looked that up right when you started talking about it because I had run into him before on a previous podcast that I used to be on called the Seeds of Liberty. No, I wasn't on Seeds of Liberty, but I was on their network doing a show called The Downfall. And I had interviewed him at one point in time, and he was pushing that, the inclusivity, the radical egalitarianism stuff then, which I was hyper skeptical of it and pushing him on it. But you said his name. I recognize the outfit he's there with, Outright. You look it up and you go right to their website. They'll tell you we're funded by the Open Society Foundation. It's like, oh, okay, so you get all your money right from George Soros. So thanks for being honest about it. Now I understand why you're against closed borders or any type of immigration restrictions at all. And it's not even that. It's not even that we have to close the borders, but come the fuck on. It's not like we need an open door policy where we can just have people coming and going as they please. I mean, even travel itself restricts travel. I mean, two people can't be in the same space on the road at the same time or you're going to have a fucking car crash. This whole idea that free travel is this universal right is ridiculous.
It says you had posted something like comparing freedom of movement to free medicine or something like that on Facebook. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, freedom of movement is to travel as free college is to education, right? So, I mean, these leftists pretend like, oh, well, it's only the welfare state that's bad. The problem is the welfare state. It's not the immigration. It's like, no, motherfucker. The roads, the common spaces, all of that is the present condition. All of that's funded by theft. Even the so-called unused land. That's controlled. It's in an unused state because the government comes in and says, "Oh, here's all these environmental regulations. Here's this, that, the other thing. Here's patrols to keep people from using this shit." The present condition of that stuff is paid for by somebody, and those people, taxpayers, they're fucking stolen from. So it doesn't follow that the taxpayers and every other latecomer in the world, every third world piece of shit coming in here to try to take what belongs to the taxpayers, it doesn't follow that they have the equal claim to those resources, even if you happen to think that those resources are in an unused condition.
There you go, right? The idea that we can all sort of, the idea that the